everyone, and welcome back to the DecompresSean cast. Surprisingly, I know. Episode 16, it's been a long while. And I hope to regale you all with the tale of why I've been gone so long, what are my thoughts, developments since then, etc., etc. So, I already don't know what to call this. I had an idea for the last one that was very clear. It was a follow-up back in May of last year, if we can all remember that far back, where I wound up failing that second Damsk challenge, video a day for a month type beat. I unfortunately failed that, and sort of made a DecompresSean cast that even then was a little while since the last one, to say the least. But so much has happened since then. So, to get right into the meat and potatoes, what happened, where have I been, and inclinations as to why. So, I haven't made a video in a long time. And simply, I think the reasoning for that was I was just getting life on track, really, to put it simply, in terms of stuff I will go into later in this DecompresSean cast. It's that I decided to shift my focus away from making things and to make sure I was set kind of on my own, I guess, in a way, and kind of not, but it was just something I wasn't super keen to be doing while I wasn't, I'd say, like, feeling the best, in the right mindset, that kind of thing. Because a big reason of why, without going into too much detail, I'll go into some detail, but not all, is that I think this last year has been the worst year ever, just to put it lightly, for me at least. I have had fundamental shifts in the axioms of what I thought in life, things that were pre-established and that I thought I knew. I really didn't. And that's really just to vague speak about it. And because of that, I have largely put YouTube and making videos and stuff to the wayside. To be quite honest, for reasons I'll get into, not too long here, you'll probably understand that sentiment a little more. So, where have I been? What have I been doing? What kinds of things have I been consuming? And what are my thoughts about them? Those are all things I'll get into. Before, I will mention, adding on to this whole why I've been gone shtick is the steps to gaining independence and personal freedom. This is kind of a big reason why I've been gone the last little while. I really hit the grindstone in the last year of, hey, I talked to my friends, my good friends at ProNon. I updated my resume. I was more adamant about applying for jobs and applying for the right kinds of jobs, ones that I wouldn't, actively want to say no to for one reason or another. And I guess the good news coming out of that, and after taking far too long, is that I do have a job that I will be starting in about 2 weeks. So that is some super exciting stuff. To put it simply, it's just help desk, really. That's kind of the big meme. But it is good. It pays decently, and to be quite honest, though, if I'm being real, it is like a stepping stone, right? This is like the first, hey, gain experience in the IT industry so you can apply for the jobs that require experience in the IT industry, is kind of how I am looking at it. And as I'm sure I've mentioned on DecompresSean cast before, was a big issue with a lot of jobs that I was seeing. was the simple fact that, yes, so many of these fucking people hiring for these positions were just like, oh, lol, you need at least 1 year's like work experience or whatever. And because of the way that I acquired my associates and whatnot, and the fact that I haven't had a relevant job since then, it largely put me in this weird nebulous sort of thing where, like, I mean, I can kind of say I have experience, but I can't explicitly say that I have work experience, right? So it was kind of difficult to find something in that vein. But thankfully, after a long time of trying, finally found something. So I'm excited to get started on that. And that will be taking up a lot of my time going forward. And this is just one of many steps of gaining that real independence and personal freedom. For first world problems of a slightly upper middle class white boy. Among many things, I have also got the ball rolling on getting a license. That is something that has been paramount in some way, but also a problem, because there isn't exactly a car for me, even if I were to get a license. That has been one issue. Kind of a demotivating factor, let's just say. But the good news coming out of that is I'm basically ready. I've been told that it seems like I am ready to take the test. But the DMV has, like, not been able to schedule an appointment for, like, whatever reason. It's, like, understaffing and other stuff. So depending on the timeline for that, this time for sure, I feel like I will probably get my license this year, if not within the next few months overall. And that will be a large step in the right direction of personal freedom and gaining real independence. And that's something that I think is another big reason why I haven't made a lot of videos, is without real independence in some form, I am not as motivated to make things, to make content, because it doesn't allow me to, like, have a good recording space. These are things I've mentioned before, really, but just reiterating them just because these are my thoughts. Having your own space, having your own freedom, your own independence to say what you want to say as loud as you want to say it in whatever manner I want to, and I want to record it. So that's, like, a big deal for me. Why, I would say it's more difficult to make videos and to actually, like, have my face in them, and why I've recorded the DecompresSean cast over these last handful of years is that they are a lot easier to make. It is just an audio thing. But I kind of have those desires to make other videos, is kind of my point of contention. There's a better word for this. It's not that. It's slipping my mind at the moment. It's kind of like an excuse in a way, but I feel like in my brain and in my situation, that is just what makes sense, right? Because what's the point of doing something if you can't, like, execute it in the manner that you imagine it, right? Some people make do, and that's fine, but they compromise on their vision, I guess, is my sort of counter to that, I guess. And why you don't see more consistent Sean content, I guess. I'd probably make videos of things, if I had the space, freedom, etc. to do so. I'd probably rant about how mid the most recent Ant-Man was, if not outright bad, and a terrible start to the Phase 5 of the Marvel MCU, if we're being quite honest here. It was... I almost want to say it was kind of as I expected, in this post-franchise, fucking late Zoomer corporate fucking environment, industry, landscape that we are in right now. This weird, nebulous era of so many franchises having their fans, have lost faith in them and whatnot. It has been an interesting experience to hear Emp Lemon's complaints about Star Wars recently, and how, don't get me wrong, I agree with him on many a thing, but he has made it clear that he does not want to put in the effort, let's just say, to find the diamonds in the rough in the Star Wars franchise, because he is just a movie guy. He is so, like, because the movies were bad, I'm not gonna, like, engage with this franchise anymore, which is, like, kind of insane to me. But understandable, like, a very understandable opinion nonetheless. But however, I do think very overly, like, red letter media pilled, fucking kind of just a big hater overall. But then again, like I said, I understand that position. But the reason I like Star Wars is for most things that aren't the movies. They're either based on the movies or set in the timeline before or after the movies in some kind of way, right? I would say that is where you find the cool things in Star Wars. And, characters like Revan, anything from KOTOR, Kreia, if anyone has seen the Rika Fag video on, like, the philosophy of Kreia and stuff, I think those are very interesting kind of points or ways to view Star Wars, right? Because they're very kind of uninvolved with the movies. However, Rika Fag also has made the interesting point that, like, there is an underlying, like, overarching kind of thing about Star Wars, and it just simply is the phrase "let it go." It's a very interesting thing that low-key comes up in, like, most of the Star Wars media, and is a jumping off point, really, to deeper, as cringe as it sounds, like, deeper, like, philosophical discussions and viewpoints on life and whatnot. So I don't know, I am super de-duper off track here, just kind of putting my thoughts out into the ether about random bullshit, because shit is not good these days as it was before, and I think there's many of an example, fuck, I can't say words, of that shit. So I'm also gonna check on something real quick here. I'm sure you can hear me typing away and stuff ever so slightly, so yeah, I'm just gonna move on, transition topics here, stop reading about Star Wars and Marvel and random soy bullshit. Everyone knows it is not as good as it was these days. So, on the last DecompresSean cast, we have some comments. Lev, 4 days ago. It's been 8 months, Sean. This is for you, buddy. You've reminded me that I just need to do this. And here it is. It's on its way. It's coming right now. Pywhip. I'll say it for you, Sean. Third woman in the crew. I can take the hits. Well, Pywhip, you make a great point there. I will follow up on that after I read out the third comment from CoughingGP, who is, I think previously named, he was like Cordy something. Sean heads on absolute suicide watch. It's over. So true, considering this video came out 8 months ago and was the last video on the channel. But to go back to what Pywhip was saying. Oh boy, Sean from 8 months ago was spitting hard, and was correct and right. Almost 9 months later. One Piece bros. I said that whole time during that video, my heart wants this, but my head knows. that it won't happen, and I just was correct. If you're not aware, Yamato did not join the Straw Hats in a very unfortunate twist of events, in my opinion. We're stuck with Jinbei. We're stuck with shitty fucking meme fishman Jinbei. Fuck Jinbei. All my homies hate Jinbei. On God. For real. No cap. But yes, despite my big problem with that, One Piece, still good. That stayed the same. We're in a very interesting point in the story, I would say. We're going places, we're making progress, we're meeting old foes, finding out more about the world that is constantly moving while the Straw Hats are doing things. One very important and how do I put this? Important and critical? No, it's I'm almost there. It's on the tip of my tongue. Paramount, I guess, point of One Piece, how the world keeps moving. You know, despite the Straw Hats doing shit and being the focus of the story, we still cut away sometimes to see things still happening with other characters. It is quite the highlight of the overall story, that things are still happening, things are still moving. And even though the Yamato stuff was all just a big red herring, which part of me kind of figured that whole time. If you go back and listen to the previous episode, I was just right in my sort of bet. One Piece, though, still good. We're still getting big reveals and big, cool stuff happening to this day. Cool fights, things like that. So yes, Pywhip. Yamato Bros, we took the L for now, but maybe they will come back later. That's my hope. People are kind of assuming that. I think other kind of peers and friends of mine have commented on that. I remember Chip Wiseman saying something about that too. Not to worry too hard, because I made a tweet that I was really disappointed. Like, double-edged sword, right? Yamato is getting all this insane, like, cool screen time, crazy animation shit. All of this is happening on Wano because that's where the anime is right now. Despite them, in my brain, I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool, this is so hype. But that gnawing feeling at the back of my mind that's just like, okay, I need to temper my expectations because Yamato is not joining the crew. They are not joining the Straw Hats despite all this fucking effort and time being put into the character and whatnot. I think, what was it? It was 10:25 or 10:50. One of the episodes was just like insanely... It was Yamato focused and it was insanely good and very just interesting looking, and it was like directed by a notable up and coming like rising star fucking director for anime episodes and shit, and for One Piece specifically. It was like legitimate, like insane animation and drawing look and feel, like movie quality shit for like that one episode. And at the back of my mind, I'm just like, we're putting in all this effort for them to not join the crew. I feel like that's a slap in the face for Yama Bros, and he'll never be in, lads. He will never... I'm trying to make this a Smash meme. He will never be in. He will never be on the roster, and that sucks majorly. I feel like past me was still right, in that I felt it was very antithetical to the character we were introduced to. This trapped, imprisoned, really, is a better way to put it, probably, character, to not wind up experiencing freedom and following in Odin's footsteps and sailing out to sea and exploring what they're here to do. And here's my fucking problem with this. It's that we have Jinbei instead, who all he has done for like the past several scenes he's been in, and any of you can go back and reread this, tell me if I'm fucking wrong, but like all Jinbei does is just like comment on shit and just say really boring and uninteresting things, and he's just like telling another Straw Hat member like what something is, or just making some like inane observation. And I'm just sitting here like, what if Yamato was here? They would be like making these like cool, funny, interesting expressions and like running at things and just looking at things, and it would just be like way more interesting than this fucking Jinbei super serious guy. And it's just like he's the least Straw Hat of the Straw Hats, and I feel like Yamato would like have a place in this crew, in my opinion at least. So yeah, that's a long tangent on that stuff. One Piece still going strong though, still going strong. Zoro got some drippin' Zoro. That was pretty hype. Newest island we're on, without spoiling, is good, and it was really cool to see a lot of these quirky designs. It was very I think a lot of people put this in this way, and I agree with them. This was very like classic Oda. You could tell Vegapunk has like a very classic Oda design, essentially. And yeah, there's a lot of inner and outer machinations of One Piece that are developing and that are staying good and interesting, which is surprising. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about One Piece, to be honest. Other than Film Red, which I did go and see, was very, in a weird way, it was emotional, because I was the only person in the theater. I went and saw it a handful of days, I think, after it came out, and I saw it at a fairly early-ish time, I think, and I was just the only one there. And I was just in the feels that day, to say the least. I would say like my uncritical brain was like really pleased, and like I was fucking swipe hogging really hard. However, my brain was like, yeah, this is like a 6 or a 7 out of 10, like on a critical level. It was all right, and there were a lot of moments that were weird. There was a fair amount of like kind of cringe 3D CG shit, and it was like Uta, the main girl from that movie, was like this VTuber like icon that I couldn't really like vibe with that shit, let's just say. But because it was One Piece and there was an arc and cool and hype moments, it held it up. That's what keeps it like a, like I said, like a 6 or a low 7, I would say. But yeah, One Piece stuff is cool. Now, in other words, let's shift away from One Piece as a topic. Let's go back to other stuff. Lecture 2023, that's something that I have written down here as a point, because I am worried about making another one, or getting together the stuff for another one. I have many ideas for a handful of lectures, like I've shown you, like I've told you. But that shit is a lot of work and a lot of investment. And my current concern is simply this. If I get a job... No, sorry, I already have a job, but when I start is what I'm trying to say. When I start, I will have less time to do things, unsurprisingly. I'm sure this comes as a shock, but that part of me has me worried to make something, I guess just in general in the future, but more specifically like this year, because I kind of felt like I was going to do one last year, because it had been I think it had been 2 years since we recorded that first lecture. But when it comes down to it, it's just shrimply, I have not worked like as obsessively and put in as much effort into like fleshing out my other topics. Like I have them as a topic point, i.e. Bakugan Battle Brawlers, i.e. the creatures and beyond, i.e. Forward and or backwards in Yu-Gi-Oh. All things I'm considering, I've kind of called a soft dibs on. It is concerning to me that, in a lot of ways, like, I never made the follow-up videos to GX. Those were on hiatus as I learned other stuff, and they haven't been worked on basically at all in years at this point, to be quite honest. Like, the artistic vision in my head for them are still intact. They're still exactly the same. They haven't changed. I just simply have not put in the work or effort necessary to begin actualizing that stuff. And I think a big problem with that, like I was saying before, was like my mental status within the last year or so, and how I wanted to just focus on other things. I just wanted to like consume other cool like based media to, as I'll get into here in a moment, in order to like kind of keep my mental fucking stable and sane, really, just to stay fucking sane. And how this all kind of plays into my sort of arc, right? And I think I came into online content creation and communities and stuff really hot, but like really also just like really uncritical and stuff. You know, I was the dude who liked Fairy Tail and whose favorite thing was Fairy Tail until he consumed other things. And I think that in addition to the last 3, 4, 5 years now of like consuming more stuff, or at least at a minimum being shown other people's like more differing opinions and whatnot, I have kind of come to, you know, different conclusions, I guess, to put it lightly, than what I sort of believed before. And that's like that stuff is a double-edged sword, because I've definitely lost things along the way, I feel like. But my appreciation for the steps to get here has always been high. I'm speaking super vaguely, but what I'm trying to say is, like, if I didn't start with Fairy Tail, I wouldn't be here, you know? I guess that's what I'm trying to say at the end of the day. And I'm just trying to, like, be more based as I go and realize what kinds of things have also inspired what I like. That's something I've done recently within the last couple of days, is I've been kind of loosely following, like, inspirational trails, if that makes sense. So I've been, like, looking at, oh, okay, this dude has, like, created this thing, and he was inspired by this, and this guy was inspired by that, and I'm starting to realize how a lot of things, a lot of media is can be kind of like traced back to like a select few guys that I now have a lot of kind of profound respect or appreciation for, about how, you know, I have a heightened appreciation of, what is it, Kurosawa, and realizing, well, oh, he was like inspired by, I think at least he was like inspired by Tezuka, and how a lot of other people were inspired by Tezuka, and people were really, really inspired by Go Nagai, and that's like how like the Gainax pose was like first a thing, and like became popular because of Gunbuster and then Diebuster several years later, which is also something I'm going to talk about in a moment. But my appreciation for things is like been deepened a lot in the last several years, and that's something I'll also go into on this next point, as I'll just fucking bounce off that and just say I have consumed and finished a lot of cool things, and started even a lot of cool things in the last year, and shifted my media focus. So I kind of talked about how I like finished Critical Role in the last thing, and that's its own can of worms, obviously, but beyond that, Gundam. I have finished the original Gundam. I have finished Zeta Gundam, and am currently 1/3 about through the way of Double Zeta. And that is a series that is very up my alley, and I am just having a fucking whale of time watching. It is some good stuff, and it's kind of just deepened my appreciation for, like, the whole mecha genre, you know, even if it's not like the first thing or whatever. I can understand that it was like a key stepping stone or piece in like a lot of things, and inspired a lot of other things and whatnot, and how it fits in the overall paradigm and timeline of anime and whatnot, and characters being inspired from each other and from fellow creators and whatnot. And one example being, I think, at least to me, it feels like Judo, the protagonist of Double Zeta. He seems like something that would have really inspired Judai or Jaden to me. It's just something that it seems like kind of thing, and who knows how that is in reality, but just like a very similar character design, a very similar, I don't want to say disposition because they are kind of different, but just a, I don't know, they're just pretty like similar looking characters, and that just triggers something in my brain that, like, hey, maybe Jaden was kind of inspired by someone like Judo. Maybe my opinion of that will change as I actually finish the series, since I'm only 1/3 of the way through. But yeah, that's something that is interesting, and how things in GX, I've come to now realize, even years after posting that lecture, how Takahashi was a big fan of Mazinger stuff, and how that was tied in with like a different creator, and how that stuff kind of relates to Go Nagai, I think, or in some way or another, and how robots and shit and Devilman, a lot of shit was inspired by Devilman, and Devilman was inspired by other things, and shit from that was inspired by Get a Robo and stuff like that, which was a Go Nagai thing, and all that stuff interests me, and I kind of it makes me want to explore those things and come to more realization and deeper appreciation of how those things inspired other things and blossomed and grew over time, is stuff that is very interesting to me, and that I may plan to visit. Interesting rabbit holes I've dove into. Other things I've kind of consumed, just to shift away a little bit. Made in Abyss. That was something within the last year or so that I consumed. Quite an anime. It really is one of the anime of all time, but unironically, because it is like it's very anime. I guess that's my non-spoiler point. Very good, strong start of an anime that's kind of kept people interested. However, has unfortunately been victim to the kind of slow mangaka pacing thing. If I recall correctly, it's getting that Hunter x Hunter treatment. I don't know if it's like delays or hiatuses or whatever the fuck. I think the creator was like, I mean, obviously because of what he makes, there's some like sus stuff going on, but then he like got out of it or something, and like chapters are coming out again. If I recall, I don't know. I'm loosely keeping up with that stuff because I'm probably just gonna wait for the next, was it movie or anime in that vein or whatever. MIA, it just hits that really, how do I put this? It hits that basic spot of like the good anime, just like adventure, just like we're going on a fucking adventure, big hole, we're just gonna go to the bottom, and ramifications will be seen since then. But yeah, among the other plethora of anime, media, game bullshit I've been consuming, I am very pleased to say I've been playing Devil May Cry, something that has been largely recommended to me and adjacent to, the things that I like, and I fucking love it. I have played through and beaten 1. I played about 6 minutes of 2 before I realized I didn't like it and skipped it, and that is something that, upon discussion with other people, is totally normal and okay, because 2 was weird. But then, because of 2 being so bad, it only just heightens your appreciation for the keynote that is DMC3, and how I have played that game. I've gone through and beaten it, and I'm going through it again because I like it so much, and I'm going through again on Virgil right now, and how much I fucking love Virgil, guys. I understand. I am 4 plus, depending on how you want to look at it, if you want to be based on DMC 5 or 3 or 1, but at a minimum, 4 years late to the party of making Virgil my personality, because he's just so fucking cool. He's just so fucking sick. I like his play style in this game, even though Arsene has told me that his kit is a little apparently stripped down compared to later iterations, but that only makes me more hype to keep going and keep playing through this series, and play 4 and beyond, and into 5, which people cite as being extremely keynote, in which I tend to agree, because I'm diving into the Virgil fucking pool of awesomeness and how cool he is, and motivation. Where is your motivation? Oh my god, it's so fucking good. It's just, it hits a really base level of just being cool and epic and just being an inspiration. And as someone who has 3 brothers, he's very relatable. Both him and Dante, really, in completely different aspects, but on a base level, both relatable as brothers, in the endless struggle, and where do you find your motivation, and fucking, this is power. Just lines that are so simple and that I have almost no context for, but are just like, yes, this is so cool. And the games are amazing. They feel so good. They're such good action-y hack and slash games that me, in 2023, replaying them now has just deepened my appreciation for these kind of genres of games. And now I'm understanding where a lot of the cool moves are coming from in these later games that I played, such as The Force Unleashed. Star Wars game that is literally, literally just Devil May Cry Star Wars, is insane. It's so inspirational, and it's just heightening my appreciation for all of these things, and how, oh yeah, this move in this game is kind of like this move in this game. Maybe it was probably inspired off of it, because it's literally the same fucking combo or whatever, or the same, kind of jump, or that kind of thing. And that kind of stuff has just made me appreciate it more, and honestly makes me even more interested in more of these kinds of games. It's kind of made me want to go back and replay the original God of Wars and that kind of thing, and how those third person actiony, hack and slashy kind of games, action games, are. It's just made me realize, holy shit, this shit is largely and just heightens my appreciation for everything. Like I said, it's been quite the experience, and I'm super excited to continue and maybe give an update on that shit in the future. But yeah, bury the light deep within, boys. Virgil Bros, where you at? Really is an inspiration for me going forward. Makes me want to buy his cool coat in one form or another. Just cool swordsman guy. Literally, that's it. That's fucking minus the story stuff. Like, that is just what Virgil is. And fucking, Devil Trigger and shit to me is so cool. Just fucking, like, particle effects and all this shit. Even for, like, what is it? I believe it's like a PS3 game. It's just like, holy shit, such well-designed combat. It is actually crazy. It is insane. It's really fun. And I can understand why people like this shit. Like, it's made me be interested and want to play other shit. Like Bayonetta, right? Shit like that. And shit like Nier. And, if I want to go even deeper, I can go to, like, Drakengard or other games that were made like that. Obviously, they have their own unique stuff to offer, but I think those are, those kind of franchises would be good things to visit to heighten and deepen that appreciation even more for, those franchises, those creators, those games alike. I know people often cite, like, Hideki Kamiya as, like, a large key person in, like, making shit, because he started with Devil May Cry and then went on to make Bayonetta, and then has, like, done a lot of other things with Platinum Games, which are super highly regarded, and, they worked on Revengeance and stuff, and obviously that is something I also enjoy. So that has been a lot of fun playing Devil May Cry. I'll be honest with y'all. This is why Virgil will be the other half of the thumbnail. But not only that, covering other media and stuff. Just shift topics here and keep things flowing. That has been a big focus within the last year, is finishing and keeping up with other media. So, something that I finished, as much of a meme series as it is, I finished Food Wars. It was something that I was putting off. It was only the last season that I needed to watch, but I put it off for a while. I got a gifted Crunchyroll subscription, so I used that during that, like, month or two ago. Finished Food Wars, absolute meme show, but it's very up my alley and just is funny and ecchi, and that's fun. Yeah, but I've also been keeping up with Chainsaw Man Part 2. I think it's been good. Fujimoto keeps cooking, lads. He's done it. He's still got it. He's still doing good. New chapter came out today. I read it, and still pretty good. It was more of a setup chapter. Nonetheless, there was a lot of dialogue, but it was important to moving the story forward, I would say, in my opinion. And he's still cooking. Chainsaw Man stuff, still good, honestly. Like, I know, like, part 1 was so gas. It was so fucking foot on the gas pedal, beginning to end. But now, I don't know, something about part 2 is still satisfying to me, because the pace and stuff has slowed down, but just, like, I like Asa, I like Yoru, and I like Denji so much that they're still having these interesting interactions, and Fujimoto has just kept me engaged, honestly. I don't know what this whole, like, meme sentiment is about, like, part 2 being bad, as has been said by a couple people I know. I don't know what the sentiment is there. Lev, I'm just gonna call you out right now. Lev, what's the deal? Chainsaw Man is still fucking good, and I'm still enjoying it. I understand maybe not being, like, as fucking hyped or invested or whatever, because, like, shit's kind of chilled out, but stuff's cooking and stuff's developing, and I like that. I still, there's a lot of just cool stuff still going on in Chainsaw Man. At least I feel, there's still that stuff in the background, even if you're, like, kind of hating on what's going on. There's still, the four horsemen or whatever the fuck are, like, assembling, and Denji, like, referenced power, but we don't know what he's doing to maybe not go save her or whatever, because she's in, like, she's in, like, hell or whatever. Denji, I don't know. Like, am I crazy for saying that I still believe that, like, finding power, like, is an objective? Like, is that too insane for me to say. I don't know. I know we're getting there eventually, and Asa is the focus right now, so I don't know what... I don't know. Fujimoto's cooking. That's the point. Fujimoto's cooking. Let the man cook. And it's still good to this day. IMO. So, beyond Chainsaw Man. I already kind of went over One Piece, so I'm not going to go over that again. But I will comment on something that I mentioned earlier, being Gunbuster. I rewatched Gunbuster because I felt... not too long ago, several weeks, couple months maybe at the most, but I rewatched Gunbuster. I felt like I needed it. That just sort of like source of inspiration, and to watch a good show that, kind of touts hard work and whatnot, and was just something I like personally needed. As funny as it sounds. And not only did I rewatch Gunbuster, we then watched Diebuster after it, because I had actually never seen it yet. So I ended up group watching it with some other lads, and was so... It was also pretty damn good. I was kind of shocked, because I know that it was a little bit of more of a divisive show. I remember there being slightly more detractors, and that confused me, so I wanted to see for myself and actually end up watching the show, right? So I ended up doing that, and I thought it was also still pretty damn good. I would say it's not as good as the original, just because of it is a new style anime. It still has the hype moments and stuff, and it does keep its foot on the gas pedal. So that's kind of why, those handful of reasons are why I put Gunbuster as a 10, I forget, and Diebuster as a 8 or a 9. Maybe I'll just pull that up on my Mal real quick. That's another thing I started doing, was I started kind of re-updating my Mal a little bit. So yeah, that shit was wise to do. IMO. So let's see. Gunbuster. G? Should be G? Or is it might be funnily named. Yeah. Top one, Gunbuster. Yeah, so I gave Gunbuster a 9. No, I gave Gunbuster a 10 and Diebuster a 9, rather. Because obviously I enjoyed a lot of what Diebuster had to offer. I feel like its first episode was really strong, and I remember liking its 4th and 6th episode. But when you have I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like the 2nd and 3rd episodes, the foot was off the gas just a little bit. I don't know if that's an opinion I could develop more, because I was group watching it, so I wasn't my analytical brain was on, but it wasn't fully gassed, I am poring over every scene and thinking about it kind of thing. So I don't know if that's something maybe I'll be incorrect on in hindsight, and maybe I wind up giving the shit a 10 out of 10. But comparatively to Gunbuster, I do think it was just ever so slightly weaker, despite the kind of strong opening and stuff. And Gunbuster Diebuster rather, does have that newer anime look, because it was made so late, so many years after. So many years? I forget. Let's see. Gunbuster, it was in the 80s, right? Gunbuster 88 to 89, and Diebuster was 06. I mean, that's almost 20 years later, right? So in a way, I feel like I can't fault them too much for making it look like newer anime shit. So that's why I think I still give it a 9, and I still kind of give it the benefit of the doubt, really. Hype moments, uses the old and newer music effectively. Like I said, strong opening, all that shit. So I also liked Diebuster, but yeah, I give him the old 10-9 is what I did. I don't know, my Mal ratings are kind of memey. I try to consider most anime stuff in a vacuum to the best of my ability. With Gunbuster and Diebuster, obviously that's like they go hand in hand, so I kind of have to like compare them to each other, right? That's kind of the meme there. But my 1 to 10 ranking shit is kind of random and miscellaneous. It's not, you know, super analytical. Like it kind of is, but it's like it's to my ability, right? It's to the eyes of the beholder. It's more or less subjective. Like I give something like Great Teacher Onizuka a 10 out of 10 because I really fucking enjoyed it. And I also give like Kill la Kill a 10 out of 10, but obviously I don't feel like those shows can like compare in terms of anything, like animation quality or otherwise, you know. I feel like it's hard to compare shit to each other. Like it's easy to, or it's also hard to say like, oh, well, this is ranked to this because of this, but like when you're comparing it to something else that's so like vastly different, it isn't exactly the same. So I don't, that's why I personally have a hard time with like ranking things or just giving things a generic number, because I feel like that invites like controversy or like comparativeness, really. But that might be a good thing in some ways and might be a bad thing in others. I don't know. Like I give Black Clover a 7 out of 10. Like what does that mean? Well, I don't know. I just like, it's just something I enjoy, and I feel like that's a nebulous feeling that's like hard to convey, if that makes sense. But I don't know. Mal rant aside, let's continue. Let's shift ever so slightly. Another thing that I got addicted to, that I was, if I recall, about 2 years late on. Hades. Hades the game. Very, very fun game that Cetal got for me. Shoutouts to Cetal. Thanks for that one, bro. I got really addicted to Hades at the end of last year. That was something that I really enjoyed going through, getting good at, etc., etc. That I seriously had like such a dopamine rush of finishing a 32 heat run. If you guys are not aware of what that is, that's like one of the later sort of achievements in the game is to beat the game on 32 heat, and you kind of unlock like a statue thing. What you get for it doesn't really matter. It's more like the journey rather than the destination, because you crank up the difficulty significantly. You make bosses like have phases and shit. It gives Hades, the final boss, like extra phases. It gives the previous end of level bosses extra mechanics, extra phases, etc., etc. So that shit is a lot of fun. It gives them more health, gives enemies attack speed, or like a shield, like, you know, just generic stuff that makes like your run harder and things like that. Hades was just really fun. I really liked the power-ups, and my like opinion and how I felt about that game changed over time and like only heightened, and was one of those games that I felt like by the time I felt like I had finished the game, I felt like I was good at the game and like had a good idea of what I was doing, the right timings to dodge shit. I had an idea of like the builds that I liked. I was a big Poseidon fan by the end of me playing Hades. I really like came to appreciate how much like knockback and knocking enemies into shit, like that damage added up very quickly over time if you got like the right boons and whatnot and like had a Poseidon focus. I would say like my favorite combo was like the what is it? It's like foes slam into barriers, create a like tidal wave, plus foes slamming into barriers take 300% damage from like slamming into them, and like plus other shit from Poseidon. Like if you just had knockback attacks, like that shit would constantly trigger as long as you had enemies who could receive knockback. I feel like that was just like the best way of clearing rooms. I felt like that was like the best strategy to me. I didn't really like other mechanics, like I want to say like charm and Dionysus's. I forget what's called, but it's like, you know, what is it? Giving them fucking drunkenness or whatever the fuck it's called. I'm sorry, Cetal. I feel like I used Dionysus the least, minus his cast. His cast was like the best thing, but I mean, it effectively was poison, so it like was pretty good. But I feel like that actually Zeus was. I kind of used Zeus not that much as well. I feel like despite being fucking God of Olympus, God of Thunder, fucking top lad, I feel like his shit was kind of weak. But God stuff I really liked. Well, let's just do that. If I had to give you like a top 4, like what was my favorite build, I would say it would be this. Poseidon number 1, Artemis number 2, Ares number 3, Athena number 4. If I had to give like a top 4 gods out of like the 8, I want to say. If I had to give like the bottom 5, it would be like do I want to do, yeah, in order I would say like 5 Demeter, 6, well, Demeter stuff was kind of hard to use too. Let's go 5 Afro, 6 Demeter, 7 and 8 it's basically between Zeus and Dionysus. It's kind of like a toss-up, really. I think I'll put Dionysus 7 and I'll put Zeus 8. Favorite weapon would be spear. I felt like the hammer. I should know the name of it. What is it called? The hammer upgrade for the spear was basically what I liked the most. The triple hit spear dash. What is it? What's the hammer called? I feel like, oh man, I played this game like over 2 months ago, so I guess I'm not really upset, but what is it called? Oh, fucking Hades hammer. Daedalus hammer. The Daedalus hammer spear upgrade. That was probably my favorite kind of run. And I just liked the spear's range and whatnot. Second favorite, bow. Bow, hands down. Despite what you would imagine, this game having like, oh, it's ranged shit probably isn't good or isn't fun. No, the bow is probably one of the best weapons, or maybe if not the best. Like, I feel like I had my most successful runs with the bow, is what I would say. But yeah, but Hades, good and fun. I sunk a couple 100 hours into it, I want to say. Definitely over 100, but yeah, it was all good, fun, rogue-like shit. I'm checking my Steam right now, see if I can give that exact estimate. Hades, 142. Yeah, that was a great use of 142 hours. Coming from someone who liked Isaac, this was more action-y, and I liked that. I appreciate Isaac for what it is and what it inspired, but you are, if you're like minus a handful of characters and shit in Isaac, you are a ranged boy. You are shooting tiers. You are shooting shots. Hades just has more, I want to say like more satisfying mechanics. I would say less options than Isaac for obvious reasons. There's a limited number of gods and boons and whatnot. However, more engaging, more fun. Moment-to-moment combat and room shit IMO. So that's why I recommend Hades. Perhaps to anyone else who, you know, liked Isaac or whatever, and at a minimum, throw it on your wish list. That's what I would say. Throw that shit on there, and maybe get it when it goes on sale, and be ready for when Hades 2 comes out, because I'm excited to play that, to be honest. And yeah, I would say I enjoyed so many things about Hades. I mean, the low-key, you know, dating some mechanics and whatnot, and the whole resetting shit, dying is intentional. You know, I feel like that only, it was just gameplay focused. It was to serve playing the game feeling good, feeling like your character was Zagreus rather. I shouldn't say your character, that's a bit of a meme. But regardless, Zagreus constantly getting better, using the darkness mirror, all that stuff, super satisfying, like very like down to the nitty-gritty numbers, like RPG core, getting better as you go, had that Kingdom Hearts vibe, just like getting more dashes and shit, like as you leveled up, and using your money, your XP, your skill shit. That stuff is satisfying to me. That stuff is inherently satisfying. Although, yes, commonly criticized, Hades is grindy. But that is the point, though, right? Because you kind of unlock more story stuff as you go. So it depends what you're interested in. If the story hooks you, that is really good. That's a good thing. That will keep you playing, even if you're shit at the game. As Cetal informed me very clearly, they liked the dating sim stuff and the story and wanted to experience that. And there is a mode for that stuff. So, if you like that easy mode, whatever the fuck, you're going to turn on God mode or whatever, and you get I forget what it is. You get damage resistance after every death or something akin to that. And that allows your runs to have a higher chance of actually finishing. So, depending on what you go in for and take away as what you like from Hades, there's is an option for you and a path for you no matter what you're there for. Obviously, I'm a gameplay RPG guy, so I stuck with that stuff all the way through and wasn't super... I was still into the story at the end of the day because it was oddly, at the time, very relatable and, I don't want to say heartfelt, but I don't know, just a word that means, that is between relatable and heartfelt, that I related heavily to the media, I guess. If that makes any fucking sense in the vaguest degree, only to those who know, I guess. But yes, Hades good and fun, good game. Would recommend probably 10 out of 10, honestly. I don't know, there is flaws. Yes, very grindy, things are annoying. There's almost too much customization, and it's almost like they realized this at some kind of point, and there's a whole thing that you can switch between certain cosmetic shit for the house. And yeah, that is super grindy and stuff, but it all kind of folds in on to itself for the most part to make your runs better. There was a portion at the end of the game that was okay, I'm just gathering resources for gathering resources' sake. And, XYZ resources, treasure or whatever the fuck it was called, was not... there was no way for it to improve my runs at any point. Once you get enough Titan's blood and max everything and max out the darkness mirror, which I may have done, but that will still take you over 100 runs in theory, depending on what kind of strats you use or how hard you focus darkness or whatever. But it's still a very fun game, so maybe I would dock it a few points. If you wanted to give me an arbitrary number, I guess it would be high 8, low 9 out of 10, something like that. Still a really, 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 really fun game. Just very to the point, fun shit. But yeah, so on that note, I'm actually going to personally pause the recording because I got some other shit to do for a moment, but we'll be back. It's been over an hour. Take an intermission, lads. Take an intermission before I come back and talk about more bullshit for an hour. Huh? How about that? Whew, shit. Okay. 2 days later, I am back. Re-energized and revitalized to wrap up the second portion of the DecompresSean cast. So, what else, other than what I've already talked about within the last hour? There were roughly two main points that I could not get to, and I had to wait for some recording time, like I mentioned earlier. So let's get right into it. what were two other things I wanted to talk about? Two more bullet points here that are fairly lengthy and justified a intermission, so to speak. So, last time when I recorded about 2 days ago, I needed it was just like dinner time and shit, so I had to take a break then. Couldn't find any space to fit in to record something in the meantime. But now, 2 days later, I'm here. I'm here to talk about other things I enjoy, other random bullshit. Go off. Go ham. Dungeons and Dragons. That's another big thing that's been occupying my brain space within the last several months. If you're not aware, in a game DM'd by Cetal, friend of the show, we have a One Piece inspired game that has been going on for a little over 2 years now. And in a weird way, the players have sort of unionized to address, or rather like to communicate and have some points addressed by Cetal, which has been achieved because, shrimply this, the game for the first 30 sessions or so, probably, what would that be, year and a half or so, is, just to put it simply, was really good. And we as players needed to communicate our criticisms to the DM because we were often talking amongst ourselves about our thoughts, our concerns, our various critiques and whatnot. And those kinds of things were starting to appear in the game while we were playing, some of those frustrations over the last about 6 or 7 months. And yeah, I guess the gist of it is, lads, if you're ever finding yourself in a D&D game, communicate with your dungeon master. That is super de-duper important. And, you know, your expectations, your likes, all that shit is gonna evolve past session 0, typically. At least if you're more new, I would say. If you've been in the shit a while, you probably know what you're doing, know what you like, etc., etc. But yeah, with this game, it was my first into the foyer. Is that how you? No, the foyer is like a place, right? There's a different word I'm looking for here, but it was my first dipping of the toes into the pool of D&D, and I didn't know how to do shit, and I was such a noob, and I was terrible. Everything was just terrible. My roleplay was terrible. My fucking character was terrible, etc., etc. And I feel like it only, starting off as a noob, only helped in a way for me to strive to be better, essentially. And I learned more about D&D and TTRPGs and fucking how to roleplay and shit. So that was something that constantly iterated over time for me in terms of D&D, and I got a better idea of what to do and how to not be a noob, and how to not be a hard player, I guess, if that makes sense. But yeah, D&D is fun and good, and that's why we like Cetal's game, and we stuck around for so long, and we've communicated things to them, and they have been addressed, and reciprocation was made to hearing and understanding the points made. So that is hype. That is good. I basically play. I feel like, I don't know if I've talked about this before, and I might have in a previous episode, but I basically play our Zoro for all intents and purposes in this One Piece inspired kind of game. I play Zomi, mysterious anime swordsman who just is strong, and there's more to it than that. Things have developed over time. He is a little bit of a Chad retard. Fell down some stairs. That was funny. But he's probably usually, typically, one of, if not the strongest lad around, and kind of plays into that Zoro archetype of just like the kind of like strong, silent swordsman kind of guy. Depending on what kinds of aspects of Zoro you want to focus on, that is kind of one of the things that Zomi is a lot like. Nothing happened, etc., etc. Not much of a socializer, I guess. Pretty like average to slightly above average in terms of like mental stats and whatnot. Like if you know D&D, like +1 charisma. He had 10 intelligence, and I say had because he got cursed and lost 3 intelligence. So that was quite the moment. In terms of D&D stuff, not much of a planner, not much of a schemer, doesn't really connect the dots, and likes the straight, simple path. Lol, double phrasing there, but he is indeed like the fucking MGTOW type, if that makes sense. Lamau. But yeah. So I play Zomi. Zach plays Sabnok, who is a funny Kenku Birdman, has piratey origins. We also got Simid as multiple characters. Started out as the Wanderer. He was like this cool, kind of brooding monk guy. Tried to like give the crew deeper insights, but he was also kind of like a silent-y kind of guy. So then Simon changed characters like 3, 4, 5 sessions in. I forget what it was, but off the top of my head, but it's on the dock somewhere. Into Emmy, a warlock who had this quirky pact, and they were this half-elf warlock, little Emmy, super charismatic and bubbly, kind of what's the word to put this? It's like not antithetical, but it's like near a word like that. Opposite, but a better word for it, to most of our crew. Because most of our crew are fucking mysterious people. And that's another criticism of our game that we have told each other as players, is that this game that's been going on for over 2 years, Lol Lamau, we haven't even like gotten to know each other and anyone's backstory. And obviously, like, everything is hand in hand in terms of D&D. It's a push and a pull between DM and players. Obviously, that's like a more angled player criticism, that we just like don't want to share things with each other for whatever XYZ reason. But you can also say like, well, DM is like not putting us in situations for that to happen or whatever. And at the end of the day, it's the players that like have to do that, if that makes sense. But yeah, I was kind of like introducing everyone else's characters and then stopped. So we got Lachlan, who is like this human ranger guy, but he can also do some magic stuff, and he just wants to like fuck elves or something weird and quirky. Adventure boy, played by Rito, who may or may not go through some changes. That's another thing as well with like this game, is that we're pretty like us and Cetal, we're pretty open in terms of like expressing what we think about our characters and like how and if we want to like change them. Everyone is like pretty chill in terms of like, hey, something like I don't like this about my class, or like I find this really uninteresting, or it doesn't add to my character or whatever. We're pretty cool with like changing shit. We have had a couple other games where that's been the case in some regard. I don't know what's gonna happen there, but maybe something interesting will happen. I think, I mean, as has been self-evident with Simon changing their character rather than like, changing their class. It's kind of like the same thing, really, to just introduce another character, want to play something in a different play style, and, maybe it's just, like I said before, how Simon started, like their character was a little overly serious in terms of like the balance of the crew and whatnot. And Jelly plays Konos, who is a Triton fishman. Kind of has expressed feeling the same way, but I don't think anyone had. I guess my counter to that would be I don't think anyone has any kind of problem with Konos unless it's Jelly, because it's his character. So we'll see in that regard. But who am I forgetting? No Need, I guess. No Need is well, at first he played a quirky Kalishtar who was like actually insane for the most part, because for No Need, that was like this game was also his first getting into D&D shit. He and I kind of went through similar phases, I guess, of like understanding more about the game, but he was just more, well, I don't know if it was a combination of things, but he and his character were more relevant, I guess, in the story and like actually did things. So yeah, so that's Zomi, Sabnok, Ramses, Emmy, Lachlan, Konos, and I think that's everyone. 6 of us, which, you know, if anyone knows the D&D, you know, moderately high, pretty fucking high group to amount of people to manage, really, and adding more to that can cause chaos, as has been had, let's just say, in terms of getting some guests and the shenanigans that ensued since then. But yeah, it's a quite the campaign. It's a bit of an island hoppy, you know, world similar to One Piece in terms of its kind of build and feel and vibe. But, you know, things are happening along the way. You know, shenanigans ensues. The Marines are constantly a obstacle, and there's kind of an ongoing in-game and out-of-game, more so almost, debate as to whether or not we, like, take the Marines, like, as a threat at their word, and whether or not, like, we kill people, and those things have been discussed. Obviously, it's been a game that's been run for over 2 years, so our expectations, like I was saying before, after Session 0 have evolved, and we've had to have a plethora of discussions since then. All of that is just to say that D&D is good and can be fun with the right people and working out your issues and shit. But yeah, I mean, I guess in addition to everything I've said as well, is that like the game has largely, how do I put this in a not mean way? The game has found difficulty being scheduled and consistently upheld, because it is like 7 people in total, counting the dungeon master, trying to like living in what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 time zones, 5 completely different time zones. Trying to get that many people together for one thing, for a D&D game, is difficult. So obviously, like, no, like, I don't slight Cetal or anyone for this in some ways, but in others, and in other ways, it has been frustrating. Like, one day before a game to be like, oh, lol, game canceled, or lol, oh, this person and this person can't show up, or as much of a meme, shit, what's the word? An in-joke as it is, there was a legitimate head hurdy, don't want to play LOL, and that was something that persisted for a long time. But I am also not gonna try to prop myself up as a saint. There was 2 notable times where I kind of, I guess, poorly communicated how I was going to not be at a game or 2. Most notably, I had to go pick up a jug of water from the store on one of the games, so I was late by like a good like 20 to 30 minutes for whatever reason. I had like even though the store was across the street, like there was some thing or circumstance or something, or it was like really cold. I don't know. I don't remember what the fuck it was, but it just took me a long time. I might have miscounted my money or something, or I forget what the deal was, or just like someone wanted to like talk to me for a second, like before I came back for D&D. So that was like one notable time. And there's another notable time where like I don't recall if it was but at least me, I wanted to like delay the game by like 2 hours, and that was like, I guess that was undoable for some people for whatever reason, and they just started without me, and then I just kind of like decided not to show up and gave Cetal and DMs like I just said, hey, dude, Zomi will do this, I guess. He'll just like guard the ship or whatever. And in some ways, in the like within the narrative, that's actually like kind of useful in a way, but also like, damn, I'm missing out on just having fun, kicking the shit with the lads. So, yeah, those were arcs that we've had to go through. And another reason, just real quick, why I enjoy. Oh yeah, I guess this is the reason why I enjoy it, is also not only because this is a One Piece inspired game, but I am also the kind of like resident like lore / note keeper, essentially. And I have excruciatingly, intently, thoughtfully combed over session summaries, which are like 95% just what it is. It's just like summaries, essentially. It's kind of going session by session and just detailing exactly what happens in terms of the game. And the only reason that I say 95% is I do, like, in a handful of places here and there, provide some like SeanDonian commentary, essentially, or writing, I guess, as I have referenced to No Need. Sometimes I, put parentheses or asterisks on certain points and like comment on them, either sometimes in a like character sense and or self-reflective sense and or mechanical sense. Things that we, like messed up on at the time, or like we were right in this way, but we were incorrect in this way in hindsight and whatnot. And it's interesting to go back on because No Need and I were like such noobs and certainly like did things wrong. And like, I remember this really cringe moment, like one time looking back on it, I was like, oh yeah, I rolled this, and I definitely know I succeeded, right? Because I'm looking at this thing, and it says this, and I rolled higher than this. And, like, I just went full retard. And, like, no, that just means that's your passive score, or whatever. It's like, oh, cringe, lol. I did cringe back in the day. And sometimes still do, to this day. But, yeah, I guess in addition to this insane document, which summarizes over 40 sessions of D&D, it is 133 total pages, in addition to miscellaneous notes and other things, I guess, because what I call this document is the world of We Are Notes and Summaries, because colloquially, that is sort of what our campaign is known as, or at least named in Roll20, is like the We Are game. So the first page and some change is like just general broad like lore notes / like mechanical stuff about the game. And it's like detailing some broad information about kind of what we know or what the focuses are for this game and that kind of thing. So, we have things like I just wrote down stuff like an in-game timeline, I don't know, there's no real other nice way to put it other than just saying a level up timeline in terms of like, hey, we spent this many sessions at this level, and in terms of real time, a real time date, this is how it like shapes up, just as like empirical data. Essentially, that's just like the purpose of it, and just to detail. Oh, hey, we spent sessions 0 through 8 at level 1, totaling 9 sessions during the time of January 16th rather, through June 12th. Pretty long time at first level, but we like this is a slightly slower paced game, and that is something that has been actively discussed to this day. And I also have like a rough, oh hey, these are like the rough timelines for arcs. Like these sessions I would call this arc or whatever, and it just like in my head canon or whatever is essentially all it is. But it is like a rough kind of summary, I guess, in terms of like, hey, this is what happened between these sessions. If I wanted to like give a broad, just like handful of words, like 5 or 6 words or less kind of thing, it's like, oh, okay, the Zemicule arc. This is like, okay, this is just like the place we went, the island that we went to. It was called Zemicule, and it was like, there's nothing about how that happens. It's just like a titling thing, but obviously there's more detail in the actual summaries, which, average out to being like a handful of pages each, depending on the when I made the summaries, because some summaries are, well, I guess summaries in general, when I make them, are just these rough bullet points. What do I remember immediately coming out of the session? Like, sometimes we record our games privately, but sometimes when, like, you can tell if you were to ever go back and watch one, sometimes I just like have this document open, and sometimes I do write some things down, or sometimes I don't. Usually I do wait until the end because I'm focused on playing the game, obviously, and listening, right? Because that's super, super important for D&D and stuff. But yeah, in this document, it's kind of like, okay, big title, heading, session number, date we played it, what do I call it? And then it's a list of bullet points after that of what happens A to Z, roughly. What do I remember? And there is a slight differentiation with this stuff because there is sub bullet points, which are essentially bullet points of notes after the rewatch of an episode, some of which constituted the whole episode, because there was a period in time where I just stopped session summaries for a little while and then restarted them. So there was a gap. So I ended up going back and filling in that gap because we record all of our sessions. And I also put down here, often snarky or sarcastic comments are made by me because we did not know what we were doing, and we were D&D noobs. Period. We, parentheses mostly no need, unknowingly cheesed a lot of stuff. And all that is referring to really is how I'll just say we like did a lot of things or used a lot of mechanics and whatnot, just like flat out, just like incorrectly, or just like, in hindsight, like we shouldn't have been able to do those things, and or we just didn't read whatever we were doing right. And obviously we can't like, go back and rewrite history, but we can just, these are things to point out going forward that we can just like keep in mind that, hey, this mechanic, it says it does this and this, and it takes this kind of thing, but the entire time we were just doing it this way. It's just like as cringe and as nitpicky as it sounds, it serves as a jumping off point for just communication and just being like, hey, are we okay with how this is, like, as we're playing it? Because it doesn't actually work like that. So do we want to change it, or do we want to keep it the same, right? And I think another thing with that too was No Need was playing Ramses, like I mentioned, and actually stopped recently, a handful of sessions ago. No Need changed character, which was a surprising but also, I think, good long-term choice for a plethora of reasons. But I think one main thing was like the Ramses power level, like unironically, like the Ramses power level was getting really high, and that was also prompting like myself and other characters to kind of power game a little, which is something that we ended up having to curb, to say the least, or at least that we needed to, and maybe even will, discuss even further. I think, like, I genuinely do think, if I recall, I feel like No Need agreed with me on this, but if he doesn't, I'm sure he'll let me know. The power, like the general broad speak power levels of all the characters is probably fine right now. I don't know, but that, I don't know. This is getting into like really nitty gritty stuff, but it's just based on like how our characters have like saved and or spent money. Really, is just kind of like how it comes down to it at the end of the day. And yeah, and like how people play their characters and like what people want or desire to do with their characters is like obviously vastly different from each other, because you know some players focus on, like Zach's character Sabnok focuses more on like the social and just like getting rid of all his money and just like spending it kind of willy-nilly on stuff. We how do I put this, I don't know, we kind of like hash things out, but yeah, that is like way too much information at this point about the D&D game, and it almost makes me want to like change the thumbnail that I had planned for this video, but I will not. I will commit, despite this this absolute fucking left turn of D&D vague speak that if you're not in the know, you probably will have little idea what I'm talking about. But hey, that's just what it is, right? So I'm not going to keep y'all here too much longer, so I basically have one more thinking piece here, one more bullet point, one more thought. Another reason, looping back around to the very beginning, to the point of this video, and to why I've been gone a long time and just haven't made more shit. I feel like because of the way that this all started, the way that I kind of restarted my channel in a way, right? And because of this break I have taken over these last 8 or 9 months or whatever the fuck at this point, I have felt a little detached from how I started, from how I got here, in a multitude of ways, and how I kind of started, you know, inspired by Best Guy Ever and whatnot, and how, you know, I got into Pro-Non, and I feel like I'm like forgetting a lot of things about that, because our kind of group dynamic has changed and shifted over time, over these last 3 years or so. A little under that, I guess, but regardless, we have changed. That is the simple way to put it. There's nothing really to be done. But obviously we are not making things anymore. Our content creation, quote unquote, has stagnated, and it is like, I guess in the long term, it's kind of a good thing how we kind of like chose to be more like we chose to be friends more than we chose to like make things, and you know, to just play games and in D&D instead of kind of how we were going, how we were trucking along. And yeah, I guess there's a lot to say about that, and how like the PCP changed over time and stuff, and how that kind of ties into everything. But you know, it's both a blessing and a curse, because we kind of have gained things. We gained friendship and, fucking people to do things with. But it feels like a lot of the fucking gas has been taken out, at least in my opinion, of just like, we've really settled down, things have chilled out, like, people are kind of like going their own way a little bit, and there's been like, kind of like, I don't know, like, there's no avoiding this stuff, so I don't even really know what the point is to like point it out, but like, there's kind of been cliques and groups formed within the group, and like in addition to those things, I just feel like we're I don't know. It's a hard problem to like talk about, I guess, because it's just vague speak and largely subjective, and everyone probably fucking disagrees with me or whatever. But I guess interviews are going to be like continuing now or something. But I'm like curious as to what the point of interviews are, since we're like not doing anything, I guess. And like I don't know, like our server and our server culture has like changed and shifted over time so drastically. Like people who own the server shifted so many times, and like it wound up in Jelly's hands. And don't get me wrong, I like Jelly, and I hope he's totally okay with me shit talking him a little bit, and that like this, like, the server kind of got locked down, and in ways that was good and in ways that was bad, because like the way that he has ran the server, and the fact that he just like ats everyone with like really disgusting random bullshit has like made a lot of people leave, like in reality, right? And I think our server at one point had something like close to 300 people in it. I think now is like around 100 or less, if not less than 100. And obviously you can like tout that to a lot of things. Like, I don't want to say I'm like putting all the blame on fucking, Jelly or whatever, but also just like, yeah, like PCP interest has largely waned, and like excitement like in the fandom or I don't know, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, is like largely less than it was 3 years ago and whatnot. But so some of these things are understandable, and some of these things are just like, I don't know, I'm just positing a feeling, I guess, and like kind of like expecting a reaction of some kind. I don't know what the fucking point of that is, but I don't know. I also feel like there is like some like game tournament stuff that's like trying to be set up, but like I also just don't feel like there's actually like ever any excitement from those kinds of things, and it always comes down to Zach to set it up, and like I kind of feel bad for him in that way, because like there's no way that he can like execute it well if like people aren't even interested in the first place, or just like, I don't know, like you can just tell that there was like so much more of a like soulful, involved attitude when it came to other shit, when it was like that first Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, and like those first few like Pokemon tournaments, and like the UHC and whatnot. And even with those things and their own share of problems, like the fucking UHC never like actually being complete or whatever, I don't know, like Pro Anon is a double-edged sword of chaos and like intermittent spurts of organization, right? Because both of those things each have their own like pros and fucking cons, obviously, and sometimes those things like work out for us really well, and sometimes they just don't, for whatever reason. And it's just become harder and harder over time as well, with like people getting jobs and their schedules shifting and stuff. It's just been like very difficult for us to like unite over shit. And that's basically why like D&D is one of our only things, and that Simon himself has like kind of touted that as like what Pro Anon is now, because Pronon kind of like doesn't have really an identity, because we don't make things or really do things anymore other than just like play games with each other and hang out. So like it's good and fun, but it's like it's part of it has lost the drive, the passion really that like initially started it. And I don't know if that's something that will ever really be recaptured. So maybe I'm just like reminiscing over bullshit over nothing, I guess, and just kind of coping and seething. But I don't know, I feel like it's like representative of like my issues and our issues overall, is that like kind of there's just kind of been some like stagnation, I guess, and like we've kind of gone into our own lanes a little bit, and like we had a lot of plans, but we sure didn't really execute. And I don't know, right? I don't know if I like if this is something that's like key or not, but I feel like, and I'm interested to see what my other friends say about this. I feel like the moment that like I stopped holding like meetings or whatever was like kind of when we died. Like when organization and actual like moderately thought out things were happening, it was more difficult, or no, sorry, it was less difficult rather to do things and whatnot. But you know, you can make the argument, well, like, oh, that's not like a positive thing to foster friendship or whatever, and like I guess not, but at the same accord, we were like recording multi-hour podcasts, like checking in with each other and just like shooting the shit. And I don't know, Pronon has been quite the interesting fucking social experiment, really, by whoever is operating the universe. Oh boy, what would life be like if one didn't donate to a quirky little Kickstarter? It would be very interesting. But yeah, just to bounce off this and shift away and shift talking points away from this cringe, to different cringe, to a different flavor of cringe, like how this stuff started as well. I mentioned it earlier, but I didn't go into detail. But there isn't much to say other than BGE stuff. I wrote it down here. Nate's stuff has largely stayed the same over the past year and a half. What do I mean by that? Essentially, there hasn't been much to say since that last DecompresSean cast, if I recall. There was like some kind of like, I think because it was in May 2022, right? So I forget if it was confirmed or not at the time, but there was like reason to believe that he had like gotten a job, maybe. I forget if that was like, if the dates line up on that. So I'm just gonna check real fast. Hope you guys don't mind. Real quick, just me getting the exact deets on the goss. Let's just say, yeah, okay. So that was pre that, but all the way back here, back in like May or whatever, right? It was like, oh lol, I'm shifting stuff and things or whatever. It was like update, yeah, working status update, bunch of random bullshit. Right. I did comment on this, but it was like, what I was thinking when I wrote this down was like, what's happened since then? And basically since then, about three months. Wait, was this 3-1? No, 2 months and some change ago. There was I believe, was it that post? There was kind of a blah 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 blah. Let's see. This is the blessing and the curse of these like fucking insane BGE text posts that are like literal essay link. Blah 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 blah. Gulp. I'm just gonna control F job. Nope, that didn't come up. Okay, lol. Okay, that's the point though. Really, is that like he blah 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 blah. Oh my god, this is too much shit to go through. This is unironically so much shit to go through. Blah bitty blah bitty blah. I think the point just is like he got a job, really, and that, like, let me see. So yeah, like working status update. He shifted to like streaming again, so like that was like okay. Blah 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 blah. Buzz, no timeline. Blamau. I mean, let's just be honest here, people. The man's Patreon has like slowly been just dying. Like there's been no growth, I believe, in the last like couple of years or whatever, and he's made it clear that this is like not his primary source of income or whatever, and then he like went back and got a job. I don't know if I don't recall if that was crystal clear or not in like the last Decompression cast, but it was confirmed since then, essentially. And like with that has come its own share of like good things and bad things, because like I don't know, obviously he made things more clear in like his like fucking whatever the fuck it is, support pitch or whatever the fuck he calls it, in terms of like, hey, don't patron me if you don't like, if you're not actually on board for the sentiment or whatever the fuck. I don't know. There's more other things to say though, but he did like slack on obligations. Like the fact that RadCon is coming up on its 3rd anniversary in a handful of weeks, and there's still shit missing from there. The OVA specifically from him, it's like it's been 3 years. Holy shit! Can we get that, please? It's been really odd to see obligations disregarded or delayed. But hey, it can't be worse than Trixie, right? Who just outright left and said "fuck you" and whatnot. As those in the know are aware of, for those who are not, Trixie, aka Digibro, formerly known as Digibro, disregarded and never completed their share of their RadCon obligations, and that Ben had to ultimately pick up some of the slack for. So that was an interesting turn of events within the last 2 years, and them fucking leaving the PCP and shit, and Ben being upset about that. It's all been very comedic, very funny. But yeah, like obligations and shit are quite the prickly topic, I guess, within this this greater sphere. But isn't it odd that it all kind of comes back to like one person, or like one or two people? Very interesting, very very interesting. Then there's shit about like a dojin and stuff that's like supposed to be mailed, and who knows how that's gonna go. What else? Yeah, also I'm like, part of me is kind of confused, just like there's like a general sense of confusion for like this man's place, and like what is his Patreon for, really? Is it like it's just to stay in like that Discord server or whatever, I guess? And like is he charging every month whether or not he makes a video? Like in this post since the last Decompression cast, he made it clear, a handful of months ago in this December post, that I won't be releasing any video and you won't be charged for anything. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, that's cool. That makes sense. Do you do this? Like, is this a thing that you consistently do? Or is this just like a one-time thing because you remembered to do so? Or just like, okay, well, I mean, I guess we're still like kind of coasting off good people's will, but it is running out. Like, is something going to be done about this? Or are we just going to keep riding the I'm trying to put this in a crypto meme term. Keep riding the bear market, I guess. I don't know. Fucking line going down, point is, of BG patronage and whatnot. I mean, the man released a video today that was actually surprisingly okay, which was just like a 10-minute Shin Ultraman is good, go watch it video. So it served its purpose. It wasn't like, over like too big, which often happens with a BG video. It gets like too long and whatnot. That was like a super common criticism of his last several videos, I think, or at least like major videos. But yeah, even though I'm like spouting all this shit, like the grand, like, to put it in a broad term, like the grand status of BG is largely like stayed the same. Like, dudes just be streaming like 1 to 2 times a week or whatever, depending on if there's like a One Piece chapter or if he feels like it. You know, dude still be going to Hawaii for December vacations or wherever the fuck he went this time. I don't even remember. Dude got a job now, and there's kind of like a melancholic feeling overall. Just like, okay, like things are like okay, I guess, but like he's constantly or has consistently rather undermined his own work because of just the random bullshit from his past that like some of it was in his control and some of it wasn't. Like shit like content, you know, we can let that slide because that was like none of that was his fault. Like that was basically on Trixie/Digi. And but like this like shit with the podcast was kind of controversial and like wasn't very epic, to put it simply, and then kind of abandoning Gib and like the PCP overall for these like vague nebulous reasons. Like I don't like how the PCP has changed. It became about us and not about the topics, or like whatever fucking meme like excuse that he had was kind of cringe, and it really didn't coincide well with like the state of the world at the time. Like, look, hindsight's 2020, so like yeah, he was kind of right on some things, but he was very like anti-mask, anti-vax. He was like making, well, not anti-vax, I guess, but he was definitely anti-mask, making a lot of points for that shit, and like kind of reading about that stuff, and like I kind of went back and checked, and I was like, oh, whatever happened to that Nuzlocke? So I checked the last episode and like skimmed it, and you go to the end and he's just like ranting about like masks and shit. And sure, like he was a little more like, in hindsight, somewhat justified, right? Like all the shit that's come out about that now has put into question the validity of a lot of those things. But like you got to understand, for like that, for 2020, 2021, and going into 2022, that was like something very odd to say. I don't know. There isn't really like, there's a lot to that, I guess, but like the point is like he was making really strange, like estranged arguments and stuff, and like I don't know. I guess my hope was like that he would work things out. Like I don't know, just in general, and like with Ben, I guess. And it does suck, but yeah, I'm also just sitting here like, is it really that hard to like carve out a couple of hours on a Sunday? I mean, I guess if your job is making you work on a Sunday, then like it is what it is. But is it really that hard, you know, to just like go shoot the shit with your bro? Because I feel like all this safe play, this is all Nate does, is like these fucking safe plays, never comment on fucking anything for the most part, right? And don't talk about the content stuff, don't talk about the Digi stuff, don't talk about the PCP stuff. All this safe play kind of just like leaves a sour taste, you know, from the past, just overall, is like, I guess, the broad point that I'm trying to make here. And despite everything I just said in the last like 15 plus minutes, despite all my personal gripes, he's still doing a little better than previously, in like my viewpoint, in the vein that like he came back to streaming, like he made it work. He's actually doing things. He has made a video in a while, some might say, and today, as in what I mentioned before, and it's good to see something rather than nothing. At the end of the day, it is good to see that, and it is unfortunate that things are the way they are, and I don't want to put all the blame on him, because fans suck, and if people, you know, held him more accountable at the key moments back when shit was weird, maybe he'd be in a better spot, rather than this slow trickle towards Ben passing you in patronage. That's like the insane thing, right? Is that BGE, at least as of like today, like I said, slow trickle down of patronage, down to like 400 something. Meanwhile, fucking Giga Chad Ben over here is like, he's like climbing. He's like above 300, I think. So you gotta be careful there with that one. Brotherly competition may in fact be a good thing, as something like Devil May Cry has taught us. Something like that, you know. It feels like yeah, Nate and Ben are kind of like Dante and Virgil in a lot of ways. Oh man, wouldn't it be fun to end it on that? The eternal struggle of the brotherly battle. It rages on. Where is your motivation at the end of the day? That is the question, right? Where is your motivation? I think that's a big theme for me and how I'm observing shit going forward from this point is motivation. Why are things the way they are? Just speculate, just throw random shit out there. People will then either confirm or deny or help you in some way of your theories and whatnot. So yeah, I'd say that's about it for this episode of the DecompresSean cast, episode 16, 9 months late edition. I would just say, to wrap it up here, final thoughts. Don't expect this to be monthly anymore. Just because I'm a real boy now. Got a job, got shit to do. Content stuff is on the back burner until I gain myself some true personal freedom and independence, lads. So until that mission is accomplished, until things are worked on further, until I get to work on making more lectures and finishing other videos and miscellaneous projects and games and anime and shit I want to play, until that time, I'll see you then. Hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.
Slay all.